Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Sharon Mehalek on the podcast. She's a health and wellness coach. She's a mom of 5 and a grandma of 11. She's a Schwinn master trainer. She was in Shape magazine in 1992, and she's also done aerobics, which by the way, I love those old school 80s like aerobic championship videos that they used to have on ESPN that they play every once in a while. But before we get into that, she's our current guest. Sharon, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, I got to ask, you're from Illinois and you're in Illinois. So what is the weather like in Illinois right now?
Well, it's about 61. It was 86 yesterday. It's 61 today and rainy.
Oh my God, it's the same. It's the same exact thing here. It's just muggy and rainy. Well, it was muggy yesterday, but it's definitely not. I mean, I like to go on bike rides at night, and this is definitely not the weather for it. But before I depress everyone with our weather woes, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to adapt this healthy and fit lifestyle?
Oh my goodness. Well, it goes back a long way. It was after my 4th child that I decided that I needed to do something to stay in shape. When I was in high school, they didn't have any sports for girls, so I was a cheerleader and a pom. And then I worked for CPAs. And then when I got married, I started having babies, and I do a little bit of running, do a little bit of this and that, but then I'd have another baby and this and that. So after my 4th, I was like, okay, I have to get serious about this. So I joined a fitness center that had aerobics, which was the Jane Fonda style aerobics. And I loved it. And I thought, well, if I can get paid to do this, put my kids in the nursery, all the better. So I got certified and I started teaching. Well, then I had my 5th child, continued to do aerobics during that time. And then I just expanded my career and I got more and more certifications. I became a personal trainer. I started working a fitness floor and taught a variety of classes from step to the old fashioned aerobics where, yeah, very funny, with the thong and the headbands. Yeah. And my career evolved. And then I went into full time and just became a manager of a fitness center. But at the same time, I still always taught classes. I did competitions, Miss Fitness America, aerobic competition. I did, I also became a master trainer with Schwinn and indoor cycling, which I'm still doing now. So that's one of my favorite classes. And I still teach now. But I also do workouts at home, and I also climb a lot of stairs. We have a big stair climbing place here that's outdoors. So I just variety, but always strength training with it.
And that's so awesome. And yeah, just throwback to the 80s, like when you said when you had those headbands and everything. I mean, I watched those TV shows now and I was like, I cannot believe there was a day and age where that was considered fashion. But hey, it's true. Even, and for people out there that don't believe me, I mean, look at photos of your parents when they were your age. I mean, it's a shocking thing. But yeah, I personally, I miss some of that old hair. That I wish that would make a comeback every once in a while. But then I'm reminded, whenever I try to grow out long hair, that maybe it's not the best idea. But when you were getting started, I mean, one of the biggest myths and stereotypes that I love to bust, as I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there's still so many women that have that fear that, I mean, if you walk into the gym and you pick up one weight, you're going to put on, 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And like we were talking about before, I always say, good luck, first of all. And if that does happen to you, I'll give you my phone number and, we can talk and, hopefully you can share your secrets. But I think it's interesting having someone who's been in the fitness industry as long as you have, because back then when you first got started, that was seen almost as a fact where people were just always constantly afraid of that. And that answer has evolved where when you were getting started, did you have that fear? And obviously now that that's been disproven, how do you like to respond to that because I bet you keep hearing that all the time.
All the time, especially people who are very overweight. They first want to lose weight before they lift weights because they don't want to get too bulky, just like you said. And I instill in them that, first of all, you don't have the genetics to get big and bulky. It's not possible. And if you do, like I said, well, we're gonna get a big reward for you because it is not possible. But the thing is that I also tell them that you'll lose weight quicker if you have more muscle mass. More muscle mass burns more as you do your cardiovascular. So, but there's still that myth is still out there. You are absolutely right, Ryan. It's still out there. So I just tell everybody. And another thing is I genetically I have broad shoulders from my father. So I tell them as a personal trainer and as a master trainer and as I teach classes, it's like you're not going to look you honest. You won't have shoulders like me. It's okay. Genetically, if you are not predisposed to that, you won't have them. So it and I have more of a mesomorph body, and a lot of people think, just because they're heavier, they're going to get really big and bulky, and it's not going to happen if they take the pounds off and lift weights at the same time, do the cardiovascular, they're going to overall shape and tone much quicker. So
Do you think that there's a certain time period when that knowledge or that fact that people thought it was a fact really started to evolve and change? Is there a specific time frame when you all of a sudden started to see more people in the gym or more women specifically doing weight training?
well, you know what? I know that it's still out there. It's still out there, but I think it's more accepted now for women to have more muscle, to women to be strong. You have to, oh, we are women, hear us roar. So, we need to be strong and it's okay to be strong. So that's where it has changed. But I still have a lot of people who will, they don't even like the muscle mass that I have. And that's a personal preference. I mean, that's fine. I don't feel good unless I have it. So, and if they can tone and still not get that, but you have to lift really heavy to get a really big. And I I did competitions that didn't require anything other than just being fit. There are some that have, obviously, they're using something else to become larger. So, yeah, I don't, I still think it's very much out there because people are really, really, really afraid of that. And I think they're listening more because of the strength in women. That's probably all I can, really.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree that I mean, it's definitely still out there. I mean, I still have friends that still, they listen to this podcast and they say, wow, it really helped me because I had that fear. But yeah, it's definitely out there. But I think it's just slowly getting better each and every day. Where hopefully, hopefully we live in a day and age where everyone can just be like, hey, you know what? Go to the gym and lift weights. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to get healthier. I mean, that's what I always say to them. That's my number one response. So yeah, I mean, I always love to bust that stereotype. But we were talking about genetics, and one thing with genetics that I love to talk about is everyone always has that one body part when they get started in the gym that really, really takes off, and then everyone always has that one body part that just lags behind that they have to train to overdrive. I mean, I'll give you my examples first. For me, my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of lifting and loading boxes. I worked in a lot of warehouses in college, so you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those were the two scenarios that really were presented to you. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot where I have to train it into overdrive just to get it to look like any semblance like I've ever done any workouts with legs ever. Like I still have friends that come up to me, even though they know that I go to the gym seriously, and they still say, hey Ryan, you plan on working legs anytime this year? And then I'm just, yeah, real funny guys, ha 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 ha. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Well, my thighs will always react first and last. So they'll get heavy if I start eating wrong or I start slacking. Um, so it's always my thighs, but otherwise, everything else stays pretty proportionate. But it would be my thighs, and I would lose my waist more because I am more of a mesomorph. So I'm not a real curvy, really teeny little waist. So the second would then be my waistline. But I've always had pretty ripped abs. So it's been pretty easy for me to keep those in tone, even with after having children. And that's another myth. Oh, I had babies, I can't get back into shape. I had 9 and 10 pound babies. So it is possible. It's consistency.
I was a 10-pound baby myself, so yeah, I cannot even begin to understand that pain. So yeah, I always apologize to my mom every birthday, and I say, you know what, you really you pulled through, but yeah, I still apologize. But especially when it comes to the fact that I always love to say with this generation, well, my generation, where everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday. it's so hard for those people because they think that, hey, if I go to the gym and I, work hard for maybe a couple of weeks, get in great shape. But it's just such a time process where people like you have been working at this for so many years, and it's just maintaining now. I mean, it's just so hard for people to grasp that it has to be a lifestyle change, which is why I think a lot of people struggle with it. But do you think that as you get older, it's gotten easier for you to maintain this lifestyle?
Uh, Lifestyle, it's the necessity for this, but it's harder to stay in shape, definitely. Oh yeah, as you age, it really is. And I said that to my husband too. I said, I'm just not as strong as I used to be. And it's really frustrating because I used to be able to pump out, a certain amount of push-ups. But what I figure is that as long as I'm staying consistent, there is a certain amount that you are going to lose. But consistency is so the key, and people think they're going to get this quick weight loss and this pill or this thing or this plan, and then they're going to be all good, and then they can just fall right back. And that's the big thing, that they have to stay consistent. And it doesn't mean we can't. I eat pizza, I eat dark chocolate, I eat certain things, I treat myself, but you have to be on a consistent healthy lifestyle, just like you said, where you eat clean the majority of the time, not these quick fixes. Oh, now I'm going to do this kind of diet or this kind of diet. There is no such thing as a diet. It's eating right and being reasonable and getting into the gym, moving somehow, some way, at least 5 days a week, making sure you have rest, making sure you have a yoga stretch another day, and just it's basic. But I think people just kind of, they don't want to hear that because, well, you mean I have to do this for the rest of my life? Well, if you want to live longer and healthier and be able to move with your grandkids like I do, it's probably a good idea. So
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. But when people do get started in the gym, I always say, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, I mean, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that difficult for you when you were first getting started, sort of realizing what works best for your body? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, what did you train for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
right. Yeah. I don't know. I think that I just, because I taught classes, that helped because it was a combination of strength and cardiovascular. And just like those HIIT classes that are so popular right now, that's a great workout because you can get the combination. You don't have to spend 2 hours in the gym. And I think that was the myth before too. Like, oh, I have to work an hour on strength and then I have to do cardio for an hour. And that's what I found. And that even my older age, I don't need to spend that much time doing this. I just need to do it. And but as far as, some people will never have, like, I don't have a peak on my bicep. My daughter has it. It's like this. I've
She's
never
still
been
she
able.
still got guns though, everyone. It's for someone for some reason. She's
I
still
have guns. I
got
have guns, but they're not, it doesn't, it has never, and that's because I have a long muscle belly there. So, but, um, so if I worked and, use the heaviest weight and this and that, it's not going to be, oh, I want that. Well, no, yeah, sorry, you're not going to get that. I want to look like you. Well, you can look the best that you can look, but you're not going to look like me, and you don't want to look like me. You want to be the best that you can be. And that's kind of hard for some people to accept as well.
When I started this podcast, that was one of the best things that I'd ever heard when I got started. Is like, just be the best version of yourself. I mean, because if you try to compare yourself to others, I mean, that is a one-way street to not gonna end well for you. But yeah, just trying to be the own best version of yourself. But we were talking about you, or you mentioned briefly rest, and I love to ask this question because, I mean, it's a very underrated thing that a lot of people, when they get started in their fitness journey, they don't realize just the amount of importance that should be placed on rest, because when it comes to recovery, it is the most important thing. What are some tips and tricks that you like to tell people just to be able to get the proper amount of sleep? Because I always say, if I don't get my proper amount of sleep, like if I get less than 6 hours, it's going to be very hard for me to get that workout in, just because I need my beauty rest. I need to be well rested and relaxed. Is there anything that you like to do to make sure that you get that proper amount?
Oh, I will. I'll go to bed. I used to, when I worked downtown and I had my little ones, I was a single mom and I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning, because I had to be downtown by 5 a.m. in the morning. So I would make sure all their lunches were made, their clothes was laid out the night before. I fed them dinner, I did their homework. I went to bed at 7:30. They tucked me in. My oldest was 16. They were fine. Their homework was done. I went to their, but that way I could be home by 1:30 and I could go to their sports events. I could do, spend that quality time with them. So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely need 8 to 9 hours. I'm embarrassed, but I do. I mean, I'm a crab if I don't get it, just like I'm a crab if I don't exercise. So, yeah, it's very important to take that time for yourself. It really is.
I cannot tell you how much I would have paid to have my parents go to bed at 7:30 when I was 16.
Yeah,
My life
no,
would have been
believe me.
so much easier than instead of having my parents who stayed up till like 10 o'clock and then they'd go to bed. Yeah. As soon as I heard that and I was like, your kid's 16, I was like, God, that kid was lucky. God.
I
Just to,
know. Well,
yep,
my 12-year-old was sneaking out,
yep,
so
yep,
yeah,
yep,
believe me.
yep.
But I was a good mom, and they all
Oh,
turned out great. I mean, my oldest is 45 years old, and my youngest is 37. So,
and that's so awesome. And I mean, because I always love to say, just when you're a mom too, I mean, that's a full-time job in and of itself, but then to be able to have that time for that life, for just to be able to work out and stay in shape, I mean, that's a whole different job in and of itself too. So it's just, for so many people, it's just about balance. And I always find it funny how, you had to get up at like 3:30 in the morning. I work nights, so sometimes I'm going to bed around that time. So I always find
oh,
that funny that some of my guests, they're getting up by the time I'm going to sleep. So that's just a fun thing that I like to observe. But I got to ask, because as soon as I saw that you were in Shape magazine, I mean, that's something that my mom used to get all the time when I was younger. So, I flip through it every once in a while. We don't get it anymore. But how did you get in Shape magazine?
oh my God, that was the coolest thing. So I entered a contest for Shape Reader Model of the Year, and I sent in my story. I was a single mom. I had 5 babies. Um, and I worked out and I sent them pictures. And I'll never forget, I was vacuuming in my basement and the phones were on the wall then yet, with the long cord. The phone rang and I said hello and they said, yeah, Sharon, you entered a contest for Shape magazine. I said, yeah. They said, well, you've won. And I'm like, no way. So it was the first time I ever went in an airplane in my life. They flew me to, yeah, because, I mean, I was a single mom and my dad, we were a very simple family. And yeah, so there were 5 of us that were finalists. And they flew us to California, to Palm Springs, and we stayed in a resort for a week. And then we traveled to LA. We actually went to Joshua Tree and had a photo shoot. Yeah, it was awesome. It was just awesome. So,
Yeah, that's so awesome. The moment I heard that, I was like, okay, I gotta definitely hear the story about that. And I mean, that's just so great because for anyone out there who doesn't realize, I mean, Shape magazine, that's like the go-to fitness magazine for women. I mean, it's just it must, I mean, just to be in that alone, I mean, that just, I couldn't imagine what that would be like. But one thing that also I think impacts women so much more positively than it does guys when it comes to working out, that I don't think is talked about as much as it should, is the confidence boost. I mean, we hear so many stories of women who, have made life-changing decisions and they've just been able to get through so many things just because of that added confidence that working out can give you. And I always say that is the one thing that you can take from the gym and use it to impact every aspect of your life. How have you taken that confidence boost that working out gives you and used that to help better your life?
well, I think I do motivate and inspire a lot of people by what I do, and I'm very, very, very passionate about fitness. And I'm trying to educate people to be healthy and well so that they can live long, healthier lives. Look good, yes, look the best that you can look. I have to admit, I want to do that. But also, it's so wonderful for the mind. It is so good for the mind because it clears all of the garbage. I'd be in a padded cell if it wasn't for exercise. I'm telling you right now. I mean, it is, and was my release. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really, for so many people, it's a release. I mean, I always say, for so many people, they don't realize that that impact is going to be so much more mental than it is physical when you
Oh,
start working out. I mean, it's 90% mental, 10% physical. You may look better, but just that mental adjustment, that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, hey, it's going to affect just the endorphins that you get. I mean, I always say there are those days where you might not feel like working out, but then as soon as you get started, or as soon as you finish up, I mean, you just feel like you could take on the entire world. I mean, just the amount of impact that the mental aspect that from working out gives you, I mean, it's almost indescribable, and it really helps change people for the better the vast majority of the time. I mean, it really is something very, very special. But I mean, like, you've been in the fitness industry for a very long time, you've also been, involved in the lifestyle. How has it evolved since when you got started from how it is now? Because, like, even like going through what you've done, like Schwinn Master Trainer, aerobics, there have been so many different things or ways that people have worked out. What do you think has been the biggest change since when you started to where it is now?
you know what? I think a lot of it kind of evolves back again, but I think the boutique studios are really big now. I think that personal attention is really big. A lot of people like to work out at home. I do some beach body. I'm a beach body coach too. Just do that a little bit on the side. I use their workouts because they're great at home workouts because I watch my grandchildren every day of the week. So I think a lot of it is people like the convenience of not having to go to a gym, but then some do like that because they have the social aspect of it, which is, like you have the big lifetimes and the big, anyway, Minnesota, right there, that's where they started. But then you have those boutique gyms that are so fabulous because they get a lot of the one-on-one and you get to know them so well without having a personal trainer, which is a big cost. I mean, I trained for many, many years, a lot of the traders downtown, and they spent a lot of money. And the boutique studios, I think, are a big deal. But they're also going to a lot of the classes that combine that strength and cardio because people want to get in, they want to get out, they want to get that quick
Yeah.
workout.
I mean, that's one thing I had not heard of hit training probably until, like 4 or 5 years ago. It just wasn't, I think, as mainstream as it is now, where, I mean, I think a lot of people are discovering it. And also, they got some of these classes are even like people are on exercise bikes and they have weights too, where they're trying to incorporate. So I think a lot of it is just people are really trying to mix it up and trying to find the most effective way to get a workout in the least amount of time, which, I mean, as we get more technologically advanced, I mean, more people just want to have more time to do whatever, and they feel like they just need to, cram it in as short as possible. So I'm still waiting for the day when you can just take a magic pill and it's like you got your workout in for the day. But until that happens, I will stick with my regular workout routine. But when it comes down to just on the big scope of everything that it comes with health and fitness, one aspect that I think is rarely, if not ever, talked about is the fact that when you do really get started in this lifestyle, it can be really addictive. And so for some people, they can take it a little too far. And for some people, it can be very hard to manage it. I mean, I've had friends that have, sort of fallen down that where, I mean, they work out way too much and they burn themselves out. And then, you know, they don't want to do it again. But how do you like to manage that just to make sure the fact that you're not overtraining? I mean, especially when your job is in coaching classes and doing classes where, I mean, if you work out before then, you're going to have to work out again, coaching that class. Is it has it gotten easier for you to sort of adjust to like knowing when you've reached your limit, when maybe like, hey, I should maybe take this day off or that day off?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I don't feel guilty about it anymore. I really don't. Before I felt so extremely guilty about it that I had to do every single day of the week. I wouldn't go to yoga on Sunday morning with my husband because I had to get another cardio day in. Now I won't miss yoga. So it's truly is a mindset of adjusting that just like I said with 2 hours in the gym. When I hear that people are still spending that kind of time, I'm sorry, but unless you're really training for some big competition and that's what you really need to do. You don't need to do that much. And that's what the part that should be so encouraging for people because they can be fit and be healthier by putting 30 minutes a day into their I mean, I could do full body weight training in 30 minutes. You don't have to do my grandson sent me a workout the other day and he said, Nana, what do you think about this? He's 18. It was like 23 sets. I'm no. Once your muscles are fatigued, they're fatigued, honey. I said, if you do a little warm up set, then maybe 3 sets after that. But I never do any more than 3 sets. Forget it.
Wait,
So
was it
anyway,
23 sets just for one exercise?
yeah, for a day.
Oh,
Like
I
a
was gonna
few
say, I thought you were
exercises,
talking about
but
like one exercise for maybe like doing like a curl or doing like a bench press. I was like 23 sets. I was like, that. First of all, that kid's not gonna be able to lift for another 2 weeks after that if he does that.
but even at that, if you think about that,
Oh, it's
23
ridiculous. Yeah,
sets, like, honey, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. So I gave him a full break. He goes, yeah, okay, thanks, Nana. That makes sense.
That is a disaster waiting to happen. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, let's go in and try to build some bulk with 23 sets, 8 to 12 reps, whatever.
I mean, if he's like he's gonna have to have like a UV basically of just of or an IV basically of just like a protein shake, then just pumped into him constantly. Then in order to keep up with that, then because that is absolutely ridiculous. But we haven't touched base on this yet. But when you were getting started, were there any nutrition changes that you had to make, and has your nutrition evolved as you've gotten more experienced in this?
Oh, yeah, I cannot eat a lot of carbs. I can't. It just my body doesn't like them. I bulk up. I not bulk up, but I get kind of fleshy. I can't eat a lot of carbs. So I do a lot of veggies, a lot. I love chicken and fish. I'm not a big red meat eater and never have been. So, and I think more so now that older, I can't eat as many carbs, but I also make sure that I get enough that I have the energy and things like that. And I steer a little bit away from more from gluten now too. And I know that sounds like a big thing that, oh, people are just, but I find I feel better if I don't eat too much gluten. So, um, uh, yeah, it's mainly my body has always been not too many carbs, not too much cereal, not too much oatmeal, and plus I'm very organic now. I watch everything I eat as far as organic, very clean. I use non-toxic makeup and skincare that I'm in that business. So yeah, I do a lot to make sure that my everything that I put in and on my body is very clean. So that's how it's kind of evolved more now. Before, when I had the kids, if they had peanut butter and jelly, I would probably eat the leftover. So I have to watch that more now. I can't handle it.
Yep. I am still at, I mean, I'm 24, so I'm still at that age where, I can enjoy, snacks every once in a while and, have a milkshake every once in a while. And my body is still, at that phase where I am realizing that, maybe 5 or 6 years down the line, I'm going to have to, cut off that right now, but I'm enjoying my younger metabolism while it lasts. But yeah,
You should.
yeah, well, yeah, I know. I just, so yeah, especially having older guests on the podcast, I'm like, okay, I need to enjoy it while it lasts. So yeah, but just also, being that you have 5 kids and 11 grandkids, how important is it for you two to serve as that positive inspiration for them when it comes to them realizing like, hey, I can get healthy and get in shape because you're that example for them? How important is that for you, and how do you or how much of that do you use as motivation when you're working out, or especially on those days when you might not feel like going to the gym?
Yeah, I mean, they know me as crazy Nana. My 5-year-old grandson, he just said to me the other day. He looked at me. He goes, Nana, because I watch them every day. He goes, did you have a workout today? And I said, yeah, I did, honey. He goes, ooh, you're really crabby. I thought maybe you didn't get it. So yeah, but they really look up to me. They really do, and I'm so proud of that because just like an 18-year-old grandson texting his nana to ask her, what to do with this workout, that's pretty cool. So, they're coming to me for advice, and they're also seeing that, yeah, I can get up and I water ski, I surf, my one son who's turning 40, he just said, he goes, Man, I want to be like you, mom. I want to be doing that stuff when I'm, 67 and 70 years old. So, he's determined too. We compete via the My Zone workout belt as far as reps that we get every month. Like we compare each other, and he's in technology, so he has a harder time getting a workout. And he'll look at somebody and he goes, "Dang, how'd you get that many reps?" So yeah, it's really important. My husband's very active. He works out every day. All of my kids, like my one daughter, fall off the wagon a little bit. She's very thin, but she looks at me and then all of a sudden she's like, "Mom, what should I do with this? Send me some stuff for this or that." So yeah, I'm very excited that I can be a good role model for them. Very excited.
I mean, I always say that is the biggest thing I think when it comes to having people being able to adapt a healthy lifestyle later on in life is just having that positive example set when they're really young and just, sort of helping guide them to, what they can do to maintain that. Because I have found that so many of my guests that I have on, they either had that when they were young or they developed it, later on in life, but just being able to instill that in their kids. I mean, there have been studies that I can list, that have proven that, if that is the case, they're vastly more likely to maintain that lifestyle. So, I mean, that is just such a great message to have, I think. But two of the questions that I love to ask all of the health and fitness guests that I have on this podcast. For the first one, I mean, there's so many positive things that happened to me when I started, working out and getting bigger and stronger. But the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tightly. And I'm, like I mentioned before we started this podcast, I'm still at home with my parents for about a month before I move out. And every single time they come in with groceries, I basically have to lift the cart into the driveway and carry in the groceries myself, being the good son that I am. But do you find that, especially even at your age, the fact that you just look this great, that people sometimes expect you to do favors, or the fact that, I mean, let's face it, you're not the average looking 67-year-old woman is not going to look like you. So, and one thing that I found that's very common amongst all the guests that I have is that you might get some stares when you walk out in general public. I mean, it just could be a big adjustment for people. How have you dealt with that?
Well, I think I deal with it pretty well. The only thing is that because I am that way, my husband still considers that I could still probably move all the flagstone in the backyard, and I can still do this, and I can still do that, and the wheelbarrow full of mulch, and I do it. I do it because I want to prove it to myself as well. But the thing is that I'll look at him and go, you know what? I did that. I don't want to do that anymore. I could do that, but I don't want to do that anymore. My kids just replaced their dock at the boys have a lake house. The three boys have a lake house. They just replaced their dock, so they all work together in doing that. And they're like, "Mom, get out here!" And I'm like, "Yeah, no." You're moving that. I'm not moving that. But yeah, I do. I get that a lot. I absolutely
I
do.
mean, I always say for me too, it's like a double-edged sword, because if being 6'3", I could have zero muscle at all, and they'd say, oh, tall guy, come and do it. Where, I mean, there's no excuse that I have to not do it. So it's something that I've had to get used to. But yeah, I just find it fascinating that you're all of a sudden expected to do more. The moment that you get a little bit bigger, all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, they can help us out with stuff. But fit guys have a lot of problems when it comes to clothing, but fit women, I always say, have just vastly so many more problems. And I always say, like, if you have big broad shoulders, the moment you said that, like, genetically you had big broad shoulders, I was like, well, sometimes dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear all the time, where, I mean, if you have a big lower body and a small waist, I mean, jeans are not made for that. What have been some ways that you have found that you're able to basically compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited at times?
Well, I have broad shoulders and then I have no hips. so so it's sometimes it's really hard because I have to get a larger for the top, but then everything's really baggy, and then it's just too baggy on the lower portion with dresses, just like you said. So I tend to go more sleeveless because I don't have to worry about
You got to
that.
show the arms off. Let's be honest. I mean, that's just a given, basically. So.
So that's basically what I do. And jeans aren't really a problem for me. I feel like I'll try on jeans and they'll fit really well right away. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why, because I really have tiny hips. but maybe it's just because it's a smaller size or whatever. But and you could get the waist, so those usually are okay. I don't have that teeny little waist, so I don't have that issue.
I haven't told this story in a while, but my story with that is I was at a friend's wedding and I had put on, probably about 10 to 15 pounds of muscle my first year at college. And I wore my suit that I wore, the year before. I went down to bend over to pick something up and I heard a zzz. Now, luckily, it was the shirt inside the suit. It wasn't the suit in and of itself, so I was able to play it off a little bit. But that's when I realized, hey, as your body changes, you might want to change your wardrobe. So that's why, I mean, if I have bodybuilders on the podcast, that's an ever evolving wardrobe that they have to have. But I mean, still, if you have, specific body parts that might be a little bit bigger than average for most people, I mean, finding clothes can be just a pain in and of itself.
Oh, and the shoulder pads they used to have. Yeah.
I was just about to ask that too. Yep.
Yeah. You don't put that in my jacket because so I look like a football
You look like
player.
yeah, I was gonna say you look like one of those NFL guys from back in the day when they had those neck rolls that made their necks like super huge then too. Yeah, it's
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right.
Jeez, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, that's just how fashion has evolved too. I was gonna ask how it's evolved, even being in the fitness industry, but that is just, I mean, that's a whole different podcast in and of itself. That would take 10 hours to explain how that fashion has evolved. And you mentioned this earlier that, I mean, you like to help out others and, adapt this lifestyle or, just get in shape and have a more positive mindset. What is the biggest obstacle that you run into from people when it comes to trying to help them with this?
Well, that they don't stay consistent. Yeah, I mean they fall off the wagon, and it's kind of I feel really bad because of their health more than anything, and some people just they have to make the change. They have to make the decision to do this. And as much as I would train people for years, and they didn't really change that much. The reason being because I trained them, yes, and they showed up at the gym, but then they didn't watch what they eat. So it's got to be the full everything. It has to be watching what they eat, exercising, taking the time for rest, and that's the biggest thing. That was the toughest for me as a trainer because you want to see them get results and you want to help them. And I have a lot of people on Instagram that, contact me and say, "Oh, what's your secret?" And I don't have a secret. My secret, it's consistency. It is. It's starting, staying committed, and sticking with it. And that's for the rest of your life. And it's not beating yourself up. It doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up. It just means doing something. And my big thing too was varying your workouts. I've never been injured because I have always used a variety of different workouts. You don't do the same thing all the time. Your muscles laugh at you and just say, "Really, is that all you have for me?" So that too is that, people are, "Oh, I'm doing this, I've been doing this for a year and I'm good." Like, well, it's time to change it up. So
Yeah, and I always compare it to sort of being like a mad scientist where you're concocting your own potion, sort of figuring out what works best for you. Where it's an ever evolving process. Where, it's just something that needs to constantly be worked on. But I also, when you were talking about the body types like the mesomorph, ectomorph, endomorph, you're only the second guest on my podcast has ever brought those up. So for anyone who's interested, could you just explain to everyone what that means when you're talking about body types and how that also sort of it helps people realize that, hey, that body type that you're trying to maintain or that you're trying to achieve might not be possible for you.
right. So with me, I'm very much more muscular. I have broader shoulders and narrower hips. I have more like a little boy body, unfortunately, I don't know. But and then you have the hourglass figure, and then you have the pear shaped. So there's all those different types that, if you are prone to that or genetically predisposed to that, there's only a certain amount of things that you can do, but it doesn't mean you can't change, a lot of it, and get to more of the best that you can be. Same thing that we said before, right?
Absolutely. And I just like to point that out where, if I have someone who might be a little bit more of the pear shaped and they're trying to become the hourglass shape, it's, hey, just be the best version of yourself. Because, I mean, if it's not meant to be, if you're not born that way, it can be very hard to try to do that. So it's also just people just realizing that too, or they may be like, oh, why is so and so, just naturally bigger than me? Or why is so and so skinnier than me? It might just be with the body type that they were born with, which also just goes into that genetic part. But the questionnaire part of the podcast that I always like to do right before we wrap things up here, where I like to ask our health and fitness guests about a half a dozen or so health and fitness questions that I ask everyone. We're going to see how our answers stack up to everyone else that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge at all times?
Oh my goodness, avocados.
Yep. That's a good one. Do you put it on toast like my mom does?
No, I eat them. I cut them in half, and I eat them with a spoon. Um, that's another thing that my grandchildren, my daughter-in-law wanted to buy me something for watching them last year during the school year because she's a teacher, and she said, "What does Nana like? What should we buy her?" They said avocados. So she bought me a shirt with a big avocado sliced open on it. It's really cute. I get a lot of compliments on it actually. But yes, avocados. That would be my number one.
To prove how naive I am, when I was 15, so about 9 years ago, I thought that, hey, if I had an avocado and you know how they got that seed in the very center where, I planted it in my backyard, I'm still waiting on that tree to grow. So, hopefully Minnesota is the climate that's suitable for avocados, but still, the wait continues. So we'll see if that eventually does sprout. But yeah, I always say, eggs and chicken are probably the two most popular answers that I have on this podcast. But now,
Avocado's different.
oh, absolutely, it's different. That's probably, I think, I don't even know if we've ever had that answer before. So yeah, that might actually be the first time. I'm gonna have to go back and look. But I always say we always get we get a first for everything on this podcast. So yeah, there you have it. But now, out of all of your followers that you have on Instagram, what do you think would be one thing that they'd be most shocked and surprised to find out about you if they met you in person?
Ooh, let's see. They bet you mean seeing me
Or
or
like, yeah, if they were like meet you in person, like what would one thing they'd be like, oh, I never would have guessed that from just following you on Instagram?
hmm that something that I do. I don't know. Maybe that I eat dark chocolate every day.
I'm sorry, but I hate dark chocolate. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I mean, I know I just don't like I mean, give me milk chocolate all the time, and that's all that my parents used to. They buy dark chocolate all the time, and it's just like, why are you torturing me like this? It's like I don't like it, but I know it's healthier for you. Is there a reason why it's healthier for you than milk chocolate? Is there something that they put in it?
Well, it's the rich cacao cake. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have the amount of sugar. It's just the antioxidants in the cocoa. Hmm.
Oh, okay. So yeah, again, we learn something new every time that we're on here. But yeah, dark chocolate, yeah, that is definitely something that, I mean, I still get flashbacks from that. Ugh. But I mean, to each their own. I mean, I have an aunt that loves black licorice with a passion. So people have their own little things. Then I guess so. But if you could change one thing about the fitness lifestyle or just the fitness life, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh wow. Um, Gosh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think the big thing is that people do the same thing all the time as far as classes. They take the same classes to change it up. I think that would probably be it. That I don't even think the instructors encourage that because they want everybody to come to their class. I always say at the end of class, now make sure you're not just doing my cycling, make sure you're not just doing my yoga. Do other classes to mix it up and to try something new, to challenge those muscle fibers, to challenge the muscles, to get you in shape quicker and to keep you there. And I think that people just don't quite understand it. They're a runner, so that's all they do is run, or they're a biker and that's all they do is bike. Or I always take kickbutts. That's my favorite class, and you wind up. I'm sorry, but that's just setting yourself up for injury.
Oh yeah, I've actually had a few friends that have gotten injured that way. So yeah, I am definitely not going to do that. But is there a certain recommended amount of time that you like to take before you switch things up? Is there a certain, like, if you were to talk about all the times that you switch up your workouts, is there somewhat of an average where you're like, oh, if I spend, this amount of time doing this, then after a while I might want to mix it up? Is there a time that you like to recommend?
Well, if you're doing something for 6 weeks, that's long enough. I mean, I think it's time to mix it up. And I don't know, it all depends too. Is it the weight training? Is it the cardio? Things like that. I just suggest go to a kickbox one day, go to a cycle and do cycle 2 days a week. Don't do it every day of the week. Don't run every day of the week. I would say from the get go. As far as weight training, that's a whole different story. So if you're doing a program for 6 weeks and if you're not, yeah, I mean, maybe you're increasing your weights, but now switch it up, find some different exercises, find a little, change in your program. And I do that all the time. I get extremely bored.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing that's so tricky about if you're in the personal training or if you're into like teaching classes, that everyone, like this whole theme that we've been talking about this whole time, is everyone's body's different. So someone, them doing it something for like 6 weeks straight, they might not get the same results as if they spent a few more weeks. But then there could also be people that could do something for a couple weeks and then they're just, they've exhausted everything that they can get out of it. So it's really hard. It's a person to person call, which is why I like to ask that question, because it just shows for a lot of the time that, I mean, it's a judgment call for a lot of things, where it's not like no one has the definite answer for everyone, where it's like, again, the whole thing that we've been talking about, where it's just a time process and you have to discover it in and of yourself. Someone is not going to do the work for you. You have to figure out what works best for you, and just take people's advice too, because you're the only person living in your body. No one is going to be able to know for sure, for a fact, what is going to impact you and how it's going to impact you. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. But to take people's tips and to take people's instruction, I mean, that can do a vast amount of difference when it comes to finding your way in this lifestyle. But moving on, the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh boy. Work less, enjoy life more. I dedicated so much and enjoy. I think it's very important to make sure that you enjoy your family and take time for yourself and also for fun. I realize working is a necessity, but it cannot be your whole life. And I think that if you could be on a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 3 or whatever, let it go when you get home. Let it go. I dedicated way too much of my life to another job, and if I could take that back, I would. I would be. I think it would have been smarter, but and get your education, have fun while you're 18. Oh my goodness, have fun.
Yeah. I'm going to be real honest here. So I had a job. So when I said I work nights, I do not have that job anymore. I have not been at that job for 3 weeks, but it's sort of similar to what you were saying, where I was working, 60 to 65-hour weeks, you know, back to back. I was at UPS. I was the director of airline shipping, where, I mean, it's just such a stressful job. And, I was doing this too. And I had no social time at all. I mean, I'd spend my weekends, just editing these podcasts. I'd spend all my free time doing stuff, podcast related. And I didn't even have that much free time to begin with. But yeah, just realizing that, I mean, yeah, like you said, work it's an important thing. I mean, you need to have money. I mean, unless you want to be homeless, which I mean, that life does not sound appealing to me. But I mean, also enjoy the fact that enjoy the simple things. I mean, just enjoy other people's company, because if you make work your life, you're not going to work forever. And then eventually you're just going to realize, like, hey, what was I? So I sort of realized that. So then, I left the job, and, I'm looking for jobs right now, but I'm also just enjoying the fact that, hey, I have some extra time now to work on other things now while I do that. But it's, yeah, just enjoy your time. Also, I'd give myself stock advice. If I went back and talked to my 18-year-old version of myself, I'd be like, invest in Apple, invest in Google a little bit. You can never go wrong with that. I'd probably pull like a Back to the Future 2, and I'd pull a Back to the Future 2, and I'd give myself like a sports almanac and be like, here, you're going to be a trillionaire by the time I catch up to you. But yeah, and again, that's just, it's just such great advice that you were giving to, or just, yeah, just live your life too, because you never know,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen.
Live with passion.
Hmm.
Do what you love to do. And, I feel like I really, I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. It didn't happen, but then I fulfilled something that was very much in that same, that same category, that same realm of health and wellness and fitness. I still meet people now that, oh, that was the best. Oh, that was the best when I worked out with you, Sharon, and this and that. So if you show your passion for what you're doing, whether it be podcasting, whatever it is, people will grab onto that and be motivated and inspired by that. And that's the big thing. And I think that people need to follow their passion and enjoy, like we said, family and time. And I really wish I would have done that sooner rather than dedicating so much time to someone else. Like I would come home and work again, and it's not, it it shouldn't be so.
No, yeah, and I would always tell myself too, just start podcasting earlier. Don't wait until you're 22 to do it. I mean, just get on that early. But yeah, I mean, it's just such great advice. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your life when it comes to, your overall health and wellness? What are some goals that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
Well, I want to maintain my health and be able to go out. My husband and I took up surfing about 4 years ago, so I want to get better at that. I snowboard and I water ski, but I want to remain healthy. I want to show my family that I can still do everything that they can do and do it with them and have fun doing it. Remain healthy, and then I started my own business. I left the other job a year ago, and I started my own business. So that I want to develop. It ties in with my health and wellness because it's all about non-toxic living, and I want to keep spreading that and changing things so that we're an advocacy group and we'll change things so that people are healthier. And when they grab things off the shelf, they're grabbing safe things to put on their body rather than things full of harmful ingredients, because that's what's causing a lot of our issues now.
So where can people find it? Do you have a website? Do you have links that I can provide down below for people?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have I'm with Beauty Counter, and yeah, we ban over 1,500 harmful ingredients from our product, and we're also lobbying against Washington to get more regulations because there hasn't been one since 1938. So yeah, I'll give it to you, and then
1938?
yeah, they only ban we ban 1,500 harmful ingredients, and they ban 30. So all your products that are on your shelves are causing, hormone disruption, cancers, allergies, a lot of things.
I
So yeah.
so I one of my brother, one of his ex-girlfriends, her sister died because she had she was like 13 years old, and she was using some face cream, and that caused a negative reaction that led her to developing something. I forgot what it was, but she died like a year after that. And so that's what really got me into sort of looking into that. But then I realized that, there's some things, like especially with, like nail polish people use, where they have like snake oil or snake vent. They just put some, there's so many things that they put into that people don't realize. But what would you say is one thing that people can do, or one thing that people can look out for when they're looking to buy beauty products to know that they're getting the best thing?
Well, they have to watch for certain ingredients to avoid certain ingredients, and a lot of it is your parabens and there's so many. Like we have a never list that we use that you have to avoid, and on the back of my business card I have some of the main ingredients. So phthalates, retinol, all that is all dangerous. People want to look, younger. They want to do this and that, and they don't understand that there are products out there that are safe. So they actually have to research some of it, or come to somebody like me and say, "Hey, what are these products? What are these ingredients, Sharon?" So that, but you can Google it. I mean, what are the unsafe products, and it'll come right up. I mean, all those crazy, makeup that they sell to little kids and teenagers in those dollar stores and in all those stores. It's dangerous stuff. It's just like our Cheerios with what do they have with Monsanto. Let's use that word, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all the poisonous things that they're putting in our food to make it last, the preservatives. So,
I mean, and that's just such a fascinating topic. And again, I'll leave all the links to all that stuff down below for anyone interested. But lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
well, I'd like to give a shout out. Uh, well, thank you, Ryan, for you for having me. But I have to thank my husband for being supportive to me in everything that I do, as far as with my new business and everything. And he came on kind of late in the game. I already had the 5 kids, so he's been very supportive. He's like a sibling to my children, and I still would like to thank my mom. She's not around anymore, but she has given me so much strength and so much. The passion of living. I really feel like I got it from her. So
And that's so awesome. And again, shout out to all those people, and well, shout out to you. I gotta say, because I mean, just I highly recommend everyone go and check out her Instagram page. I'll leave a link to it. But I mean, it's just so inspiring to see someone still have that that spunk, and still have that overall positive image and of life, and just still being able to maintain this lifestyle at that age. I mean, it's just so motivational, and it makes me always say to other people, it's like, if it's just like, I always like to tell the story of when I was first going to the gym. There was a guy who was a veteran, and he lost an arm and a leg, and he would still go to the gym all the time. And just, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if they can do it, why can't you? And I mean, just your account is just so inspiring for so many people. So I got to say, honestly, keep it up with that. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your business. Like I said, I'd leave a link to all that stuff down below. And again, Sharon, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I love doing this podcast because, I get to hear everyone's stories, and it really adds more credence to behind the person, because I think, especially with Instagram, so many people, they just get to see people's highlights. They get to see, the good parts of their lives, but having people come on and share their life, I mean, it really, I think, helps people to better understand them. So thank you so much for coming on.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, 100%. And I'd love to have you on again. And we'll have you on again. Like I said, I usually wait, about a year or so, and then you can talk about, how your business has skyrocketed, and how,
It'd be awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So again,
Actually, probably awesome, isn't it? What? That's not the word, right? That we're using now. What is it? Dope.
I still use awesome, but I've heard that. I've heard that that's been going on. Yeah, dope now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, I think it's kind of old, but
Yeah,
anyway.
don't even get me started on my generation. I'm embarrassed. I'm one of those people where I should have been born like when my parents were born, but I'm still the guy that listens to his 80s and 90s music, when he's in the gym, and no one else gets me or understands that. But that's a whole different topic. But again, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thanks, Sharon, for coming on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.